Welcome back, you guys, to the Butterfly Season podcast. Today, we're going to talk about it's not you, it's me. It's not me, it's you. What's the title of this? It's not me, it's you. It's really both, honestly, which is why I'm getting confused. But I'm going to be talking about mirrors. But before I get into it, this is an episode of the High Vibes Only series. If you are tuning in for the first time, I want to encourage you to go back to episode 1 of the High Vibes Only series, High Vibes Only, and then listen to them in order. They piggyback on one another and it's by design. So do that. But in the meantime, let's dive into it. So it's not me, it's you is a concept that I started to realize during my High Vibes Only journey about how people's situations, people's projections, that used to trigger me or maybe felt like a personal attack really weren't about me. And so what I want to do today is kind of give you some insight on dealing with maybe negative situations or people without compromising your positivity. And so it's really, this might be triggering for you as well, but let me just hear me out. Relationships are like mirrors, okay? Like they reflect back aspects of ourselves to others. And if you've been listening, you've been hearing me talk about how whatever you put out is literally what you attract. And so if you're in a scenario where something's happened, you attracted that. So there's a level of accountability, like what did I do to be in this situation? But when someone has an issue with you, or here's how you would like unsubscribe from a situation. When someone has an issue with you, it is probably a mirror reflecting their own insecurities or something about you that reflects back to them, their own insecurities or fears or unsolved issues. Similarly, on the reverse, when you have a strong reaction to someone else's behavior, it's a mirror reflecting you and your own triggers and unsolved emotions. Here's like a quick anecdotal example. I had a friend who, without going into too much detail, I felt like created a problem so that they could focus on solving it. And I was like, I just picked it up. Someone was like, oh, wow, like they're doing this. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, they're just creating a problem to solve it. Like that didn't need to happen. There's just like manufactured a problem so that they could solve it. And it wasn't until like a week or 2 weeks later that I realized I was actually also doing the same thing in a completely different, unrelated area of life, but I was able to see it so clearly because I had it in myself. So it's kind of a humbling scenario when you realize everything is kind of a mirror and how your triggers from someone else can really be about you. And so if you like recognize that people project their own internal struggles onto others, you might realize like that any blame or any sort of criticism against you is often something that they're not willing to accept within themselves. Here's another funny story that I just thought of. So when I was in law school, there was this guy in class and he would always clear his throat. And it bugged me, like bothered me to no end. And I would text my husband like, dude, he's doing it again. He's clearing his throat. Like no one else is bothered by this. It's a distraction for the whole class. And it's like, you can't tell someone, hey, can you stop clearing your throat? Like you just can't. Right. And I'm sure you guys have had instances where someone does something that like irritates the crap out of you. So he was a really nice guy, though. We were friendly. And in law school is kind of like high school. You take all of the same classes with the same people. So it's not like college where you have different people in different classes. Law school is like everyone is in the same class with you. Anyways, so there was one day I was walking down the hall and there was like a corner. So if someone was walking on the other side of the hall, I couldn't see them until we met up, right? Like there was like a crossway and whatever. I was walking down the hall and then we meet up like at that crossway. And he was like, I knew that was you walking from across the hall. I was like, really? How'd you know it was me? Because I was just walking like quietly. I wasn't talking. I was by myself. He was like, I heard you clear your throat. I literally was like, what? I don't do that. And I mean, I didn't tell him that, but I was like, oh, okay. And then I immediately text Cam and I'm like, dude, what? Like he just said that I clear my throat. No, he clears his throat. And that's just a perfect, funny example of how something that triggers you is something that you also have in yourself. And in that instance, it was like clear, like going, anyway. So that's a perfect example. But when you're able to kind of see that and you recognize that those issues really aren't about you at all, it's about the other person's like inner world, that repositioning can create empathy within you. So instead of taking their actions personally, you can empathize with their struggles. You can have a little bit more understanding, and it can soften your reaction and allow you to like respond with compassion rather than defensiveness, or not respond at all. I think that's also very appropriate. Not every issue that you realize is a projection or a mirror or any of those things when it's flipped, right? When you are triggering someone else, not every issue requires you to be like, "Hey, this is about you. Let's help you solve that," right? Sometimes you can just like literally unsubscribe. I was unintentionally in at the center of an issue like a few months ago. Someone was mad at me for not inviting them on a trip, but it wasn't my trip. I just had randomly got invited on it. It wasn't my trip to invite anyone. And when I realized that, I'm like, that's not about me. It's not about me. And I don't mean that in an insensitive way. I mean that in like a release way. Like I don't have to carry that. They might feel a way about me, but I'm not going to feel a way about them, because I know that whatever it is that they feel has nothing to do with my actions, because I didn't take any action. I just said yes to going on a trip. And so that allows me to have empathy and know, hey, they might be struggling with maybe feeling left out, or I may be feeling like I leave them out. I have no idea. But when I am ever around them, I can approach a situation with empathy and grace and understanding instead of feeling like it was a personal attack. So when you have something like that happen, and when both parties are able to kind of like realize that the issue is more about like an internal struggle and than like external conflict, I feel like it deflates the room, it deflates the tension, it deflates the situation. And then what was a personal attack or a dig or whatever is actually an opportunity for growth and understanding. And really the shift can just like create and promote a more productive, less emotionally charged interaction with someone. I have another friend of mine who she triggers my like mother wound, and I didn't know how to tell her about it. And really it was just like, her and I have parents that have similar personality types, and her personality type is like kind of reminds me of my mom's personality type. And sometimes unintentionally I feel dismissed, and then I feel like not worthy, and then I feel like I don't belong in the conversation, and then I feel like we shouldn't be friends, and but nothing is ever intentional. And it's never actually like coming from that place. I feel that though, which is not about her. It's about me and what I'm working through with my own like mother-child trauma. So her and I were able to have that conversation actually. And it was a really beautiful conversation, because I was like, look, I was even like crying. I'm like, you trigger me in this way, and I know that it's not intentional. I know that you love me so much, but when you do this is what that makes me feel like. And I know it's like such a like non-emotionally charged action that I'm telling you that you take, but this is how it makes me feel, and this is what I'm working on. And just know that if my energy ever changes in the conversation, I'm like trying to work through that. I'll be sure to issue spot it next time. And then she was like, oh my gosh, like I understand. I can see that, and I, approach you in this way because of my like motherhood stuff, so it's like such a funny mirror with how life works. But when you guys can realize that, you can deflate the situation, and when you embrace this concept of like, that's actually not about me, like that's a you thing, or vice versa, this is about me, it's really not about you. If you embrace that concept, this mirror concept, I feel like it can be a really beautiful catalyst for personal growth. It can be a beautiful catalyst for inviting self-reflection and introspection, and then encouraging you to explore your own triggers and unresolved issues. It's funny because I have like a back, now that I have this level of awareness, I have like a list in the back of my mind of things that I, at some point in time, when I'm done addressing like the stuff I'm addressing now with my therapist, I have like a handful of things. I'm like, these people trigger me. I'm not entirely sure why, but they do. They've done nothing to me at all. But these are the people. And I know that it's something that at some point I need to work on, but we're handling other things right now. Anyways, think about this next time you're irritated by somebody or someone triggers you about something. How can this be a reflection back to something that you might be working on internally or need to work on internally? Or how can you have grace with somebody who maybe was acting a way that felt out of character? towards you and you feel like you did nothing wrong. So something to think about, food for thought. But if you guys enjoyed this episode, tag me online. I love to see you guys tagging me on Instagram stories. It's literally the funnest thing to know that we're all kind of doing high vibes only together. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.